All right, let's jump right in and unpack how a regional burger chain absolutely outplays massive global conglomerates. We're going to see how they've taken their 75-year history and turned it into a legitimate MBA-level management masterclass. You know, when we think of fast food, we almost always think of rapid, reckless expansion. But the story of In Out Burger offers a completely different, almost counterintuitive blueprint for success. To really grasp their scale, you just have to consider this staggering number, 391. That is 391 stores spread across multiple states, completely privately owned, and 0 franchises. None. In an industry where the standard go-to playbook is to franchise as quickly as humanly possible, In-N-Out has just completely bucked the trend. And honestly, that brings us to a massive question for corporate leaders everywhere. How in the world do you scale a business to this size without losing your soul, diluting your quality, or, micromanaging your people to death? It is the ultimate scaling dilemma. Well, the secret actually lies in a brilliant framework called the 20 management buckets. Now, a management bucket is basically a core business competency. It's an operational focus area that you use to categorize, train, and measure your success. By filtering In-N-Out's history through these buckets, we can clearly see exactly how they've engineered such enduring success.
So, here is our syllabus for today's explainer. We'll be looking at 1. Our cause. 2. Our community. 3. Our corporation. And 4. The ultimate crisis test.
Let's kick things off with part 1, our cause, strategy, and the customer. Pretty much every company out there claims to put the customer first, right? But In-N-Out actually operationalizes their customer bucket. They literally print a very specific phrase on the signature line of every single corporate check they issue. This check was made possible by the customer. I mean, think about the psychological impact of that. Every single time a manager or a vendor looks at a payment, they are instantly reminded of exactly who is funding the entire operation. And this dedication perfectly illustrates their strategy bucket. Rather than just expanding blindly to chase revenue, they enforce a strict, non-negotiable rule. Step 1 is always build the supply chain first. They build a regional warehouse to guarantee absolute freshness, so no microwaves, no freezers. Only after that's established do they open stores in that surrounding region, which is exactly how they allow themselves to scale carefully into new territories, like their expansion into Tennessee.
Moving right along to part 2, our community, a culture of yes. When Lindsay Snyder took over, she intentionally flipped their culture bucket on its head. She transformed it from a rigid, traditional top-down approach into what she very proudly calls a culture of yes. Guys, this is a true masterclass in servant leadership. It's entirely about empowering everyone on the team to feel a sense of ownership, to actively look for ways to say yes to the customer and to each other, and essentially just ditching the suffocating corporate bureaucracy.
A really crucial point in their team bucket was a very intentional title upgrade made way back in 1976. They completely stopped calling their employees helpers and upgraded them to associates. Because words matter. A helper implies a temporary gig, right? But an associate, that implies partnership. It implies a career path. It really makes you ask yourself, are your own team's job titles outdated or are they highly intentional?
Now here is where they beautifully combine the results bucket and the hoopla bucket. You obviously don't get to almost 400 stores without serious metrics, like volume increases, low turnover, and strict food safety. But they balance that intense operational rigor with actual, genuine fun. We're talking softball leagues, golf tournaments, and a trivia competition they call the Burger Bowl. Measuring serious business metrics alongside friendly competition fosters a level of employee loyalty that most fast food chains can literally only dream of.
Let's look under the hood at part 3, our corporation, systems, and delegation.
Their operations bucket has always been aggressively innovative. Back in 1949, grandfather Harry Snyder pioneered the drive-through two-way speaker concept. Get this, it was so radically new at the time that he actually had to post red warning signs explaining how to use it just so people wouldn't get out of their cars and start messing with the new electronic switches. They have been absolute pioneers from day one.
Harry Snyder also designed an incredible systems bucket for training that relied purely on muscle memory. He would give his new managers these blank leather notebooks, knowing that just verbally telling someone what to do wasn't gonna stick. By forcing them to hear the instruction and physically write it down, it embedded the knowledge so deeply. And that is exactly how you build an operational advantage that lasts for generations.
Because remember our scaling dilemma from earlier? You physically cannot micromanage nearly 400 stores. So their delegation bucket relies entirely on a cascading training model. The executives train the store managers, who are then fully empowered to train their own team members.
This unbroken chain of knowledge transfer is exactly how their mission has remained completely firm for 75 years, without ever once relying on a franchise model.
Which brings us to part 4, the ultimate crisis test.
You know, the true test of all these management buckets is undeniable resilience in the face of tragedy. The crisis bucket. In 1977, a devastating fire destroyed their headquarters. Yet, because of the massive goodwill they had built in their community and customer buckets, faithful vendors rallied around them to keep every single store supplied. Then, in 1993, a horrific plane crash killed President Rich Snyder and other key executives. It was those incredibly strong internal systems that helped them survive that immense loss, which eventually paved the way for Lindsay Snyder to take the helm when she was just 27 years old.
And finally, Section 5, auditing your own buckets.
In N Out uses these iconic crossed palm trees as a distinctive visual symbol on their physical properties and their packaging. It instantly anchors their brand, their consistency, and their culture right in the minds of their customers. When you pull up and see those trees, you know exactly what kind of experience, quality, and service you're about to get. No questions asked.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a dual challenge to apply to your own corporate leadership. First, do your customers instantly recognize your operational symbol, and does it invoke a genuine promise of culture? And second, looking inward at your own organization, from your culture and delegation to your strategy and crisis preparedness, which of your own management buckets needs a massive overhaul starting tomorrow?